project's point of view to get 7.5% of the float was sold. And then, roughly 3.5%.
Morning, guys. We're going to library using FSD. See how good is this.
4 years, it was kind of like, how does float get out there day one? It's like you kind of just have to airdrop it.
Sorry.
And now
we're going
everyone has this learned behavior of like, the second I get anything on airdrop.
We are going to Rene's Bakery from Eli Lilly's world headquarters. It's about, about 8 miles, 30 minutes. Yeah, there's some like red, but mostly are blue, so it's good. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Just sell it to zero, and then it's just like, it's been difficult
it's too
structurally.
Bad. You cannot see all this stuff, huh?
Token sales via exchanges to get more float out there, I think, is like a healthy progression of just like how tokens get into the market to start a chain.
I mean, that is a better way, because previously when ICOs were basically verboten, if you wanted to increase the float, that basically meant, okay, do a bigger airdrop. And doing a bigger airdrop, of course, as we...
Sorry guys, I'm listening to this crypto. In case you haven't noticed, I'm in a crypto research. So I'm trying to identify which crypto that's gonna make it. So this is the podcast from Hasib Qureshi on Unchain, talking about Monet, the reason like layer 1 blockchain. I'm bullish. I have some position on it, but it has crashed like almost 50% since I bought it. So peace. It's okay. It's for long term. I believe it's gonna be like 10x, at least 10x, could be 100x from now. All right. Cheers.
Learned has become less and less efficient at actually doing anything useful. So you're kind of just burning tokens in order to maybe solve a market structure problem that, like, how much is this actually a solution to that problem? TBD. The other thing, of course, is like, what's the other side of tokens with no locks? The answer is meme coins. And okay, you go see a meme coin, everything's unlocked, everything's trading immediately. Is there all that much evidence that, like, okay, these things trade better or more stably, or there's better price discovery or whatever? It's not really clear. But then also, if you look at previous generations of tokens, right? So just go look back at Yearn or look back at stuff that is fully distributed, right? If it's true that high FTV, low float is the primary cause of this last batch of tokens going poorly, then what you should see is dispersion. What you should see is that tokens that are mainly unlocked are doing better than tokens that are more recent that have this high FTV, low float mechanic. And you do not see that. You do not see that, like, oh yeah, Yearn and Compound, which are fully distributed, are doing really well relative to insert DeFi project from this vintage. You say, actually, no, they're all moving together, and there really is no clear regressor you can run that says, this explains why things are going poorly. So that was my principal critique of the low FTV, high float story, is that these tokens have basically always been, quote unquote, low float, high FTV, if you consider low float to be like 12%. 12% is the historical average. It was the historical average in 2018, and it's the historical average in 2024. 2025, I don't know, I didn't run the numbers, but I wrote this article in 2024. So I don't think the story is that simple. If it were, it would have a really simple solution. But there are no simple solutions for why tokens keep fucking going down. So my argument is that, like, no, I think vesting is good. I think this is not something that we should not remove. I do think there are ways that we can improve it at the margin. I do think that the main way that you can improve it at the margin is with token sales, right? If you do a token sale, then one, it's a non-wasteful way of getting more float out there, right? So you get more float out there immediately. You can actually make sure that it's going to real users by doing some kind of deduplication / Sybil resistance. And by getting those tokens out to real users, you get cash instead of just airdropping it to random people, right? And then with that cash, you can make the protocol better, or in some ways even do some kind of market stabilization. Now, TBD whether or not that's legally advisable, but I have to imagine that norms around this are going to evolve in some way. My guess is that at some point what happens is people find ways to get more creative about how to use very, very large token sales. So maybe let's say you sell, not 7%, but let's say like 15% of the token supply. And with that amount of cash, if it's a really big project that has a nominally high FTV, you use that cash in some way that's not, okay, we're like in the market as a dealer just going out and buying back our token, but there's some kind of programmatic way in which this is a stabilizing pool of capital for the token markets, right? That's not discretionary. I can imagine that becomes a new norm in the market that both increases float, but also doesn't say, okay, I have this giant pile of money, but I'm not going to just burn it in a gigantic fat treasury that I, just give out token grants and stuff that don't end up going anywhere. Because that is the other failure mode that we saw from previous cycles when projects would raise huge sums of money and the ROI, when you get into the hundreds of millions, just plummets on your ability to actually drive meaningful outcomes.
But here's the counter argument, right? If you are a mature project that is about to launch a blockchain or an application where it's fully built, right?
Yeah.
Raising the capital at the end of the process when it is fully built, there are a lot fewer use cases for that capital besides, to your point, being a dealer, market maker, whatever, buying back tokens later. Like the capital.
Just a comment. Earlier, I have to kind of nudge it to choose the left lane, because the right lane is actually you have to turn right. So it's a good thing it follows me. So sometimes things like that, I don't know, the software really doesn't know or wait until the last minute to take the left lane, or but if I think if I'm not mistaken, I think it's just wait until kind of the last minute, but that's not good, because if you wait until the last minute, then you might not have the opportunity to do that because it's so close, right? And then you are forced to take that right turn, which you don't want to, which I already experienced several times. It's like taking a while to like go into the position into the right lane, and then the software somehow just kind of wait until it's so close, and then when it's so close, because there's so many cars backed up, and those cars doesn't want to give in, and then we are the Tesla software forced to take the lane that lead to other destination, which I don't want, right? So that's my criticism in for this. It seems still the problem, even with this FSD 14.13.3.1 or 13.1. But this is the latest one. I just got it like 3 days ago, whatever. So I think that's definitely is fixable. It's just have to be trained smarter. It's a good general rule of thumb to position yourself on the right lane, like even like far away before that, right? Before it's too late, right? So just do it first, take the right lane, position the right lane, and then you're good to go, right? So I think that's easy to fix, I think. All right, back to crypto podcast.
It's less useful at the end when it's ready for launch versus at the beginning when there's a lot of building and hiring and like it's development.
I don't know that that's true.
Yeah, it's kind of true, but like it's not like these foundations or these labs, like they launch the blockchain, they walk away, right? There's still a lot of work to be done, and even you look at something like Uniswap, right? Many different versions have been built out, and probably more capital spent post token launch than pre. But I think to Kevin's point too, it's also about you need float. The question is, do you just give the token away to a bunch of people who are probably civiling you anyway and they're just going to dump it immediately, or do you like have some better method of distribution? And it feels like a sale is like a better way to do that, even if you don't care about generating any money. Like even if we're like, you have to, I don't know, draw some blood to like get this token. That would still be a better way than just getting out of airdrop.
That's like WorldCoin.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Like go in the arm.
Yeah.
Okay, Bloodcoin.
So I have a sample.
Bloodcoin.
And
Who's building
Sam
this?
gives you tokens.
Okay, I like that. Okay, so the one side of this is, should all tokens be unlocked immediately, and should tokens vest? The other core criticism of Monad is, why do we need another fucking L1? We already have so much block space. Ethereum's cheap, right? Vitalik was just posting like, oh, just come build on L1. The fees are like 1 cent to do a swap or whatever. So there is a real question of like, okay, hey, maybe at the time that you guys started building Monad, which was, I believe, 2022, when Monad was first founded. Okay, maybe in 2022, there was an argument about why we needed this blockchain, but you idiots were way too late. You shipped this thing 3 years late, and now we solved all the problems. Why do we need you? So this criticism was probably the most common thing that I saw. And I wrote this big, long article, and we ended up reading it out, or I ended up reading it out on the chopping block on Sunday, of kind of critiquing this cynicism that people feel increasingly about, not just about, okay, do we need new infra, but also, is any of this infra valuable at all? is Ethereum valuable? Is Solana valuable? And of course, if the answer to that is no, then obviously the answer to Monet is going to be no. But so curious how you guys saw that whole zeitgeist playing out.
I mean, I think as a society in general, there's always room for more experimentation and development of L1s. As long as you're trying something different or you're iterating on the structure of an L1 in some way. If it's the 37th EVM L2 of Ethereum, it is not valuable at all compared to the 36th, the 35th, whatever, right? If there's genuine differentiation, then it's, I think, valuable because it's something that society can learn from, developers can learn from, users can learn from. It like extends the like social knowledge, right? There's value there. If it's just another copycat, there is no value at all and it shouldn't be. That's my personal.
Yeah. I think people acknowledge that Monad's not a copycat. You know, so like Arthur Hayes came out and he was just, I think first he was like, oh, Monad, $10, Monad's gonna rip. And then it went down and then he was like, fuck Monad, this is VC trash. You know, yeah, short this thing to zero. And Keone wrote this very heartfelt post of like, oh, well, actually, Mr. Hayes, we have all this great technology that may I interest you in. And he described all the different innovations. And I think Arthur's response was something like, look, I've heard from people that you guys are good guys and that you built some real tech, but like, yeah, you know, who cares? Look, no one needs it. If I don't care if you build good tech, nobody needs this, and this is the same kind of down-only VC trash that is just going to die on the vine. And so, yeah, even if it is differentiated, even if it is different, even if they did really improve the mousetrap, well, we don't need better mousetraps. The mousetraps catch mice.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this happens with every tech cycle, and then, okay, there's some new use case that actually does take advantage. I mean, people, I feel like also, like, how many perp dexes were there before Hyperliquid, and now, it just, like, I think it's such a, like, a facile argument. I think also, like, let's think about the Monet too, where, like, I feel like you guys actually did everything, and, like, people still hated you for it, where normally it's like, okay, you didn't airdrop me enough tokens. Okay, actually, like, a very cool airdrop ceremony. It's like, okay, do you do the sale? The sale was, like, very extractive. Okay, it was, like, you had this big sale, and it's, like, and then you actually built the tech, and, like, there's so many other, like, random bullshit projects from the past 3 years that you see people promoting on Twitter, and I feel like you guys, like, you know, it's like the squeaky clean kid in like the back of the class that like has done everything right, but people still fucking, you know, beat you up in the you know, in the playground anyway. So I don't know. It's just like, it's very funny. I'm like, how can you hate this child? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, going back to like people kind of having their clans, and that's like where they claim, and they like, I'm a Patriots fan when we play the Giants. Like, I don't actually have any opinion of the players, but it's like, oh, we're playing the Giants. Like, I hate those guys. I think a very similar thing happens with crypto, except there's also like a financial component to it, where people own an asset, and anything that could potentially challenge that is an enemy or a foe.
I actually think that's a very small part of it. I think there was some of like,
I
the ETH tribalists and the Solo tribalists, some of them were coming out, but it was much bigger than that, right?
Yeah, there have been other L1s that have launched in the past couple years that like don't get as much like tribal beef, right?
Here's what I'd say. Here's what I'd say is that like what I saw most interestingly about Monad is that people who normally never talk about anything like this had opinions about Monad, right? And the thing that's interesting is that everybody has this intuition that there's too many L1s, there's too much block space, fees are way down. So like this is a non-problem that you guys are trying to solve. And it's the most common criticism is that it's extractive, that you guys are, you know, almost like duping the market or playing to the market's weakness or folly, that, oh, okay, you know that markets like L1s, so you guys are creating this L1 to extract from the market and to like fool the market into giving you a valuation that you guys can then dump on. So it's almost like it's a very different kind of mental model than just, oh, you're bad because you're shitting on Ethereum, right? What's interesting is that if you think about like the really big success stories in the L1 space, they all actually had a very similar reaction, right? Ethereum got the Bitcoin people so angry.
Yes.
Right? Like irrationally angry. People who would never touch, like they don't care. They would never use Ethereum. But like just the idea that Ethereum existed, it's like, oh, this shit coin that you ICO'd, like why didn't you just fork Bitcoin? Why aren't you building this on Bitcoin? They were so angry about it. And the second one that got a very similar reaction was Solana. right? Where it's like, so like, why are you building this? This is not decentralized. This is, you guys are liars. You're manipulating people into buying your fucking whatever. Like, it's not open source, blah, 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 all this stuff. And so, now that's not to say that because people are mad, it's a sign that you're going to do well. But it is a sign that people being mad is not very indicative of anything in particular, except that you are very close to the bloodstream. I think that's what it indicates more than anything. Like L1s on some level, like they are obviously the most core thing in crypto. Like it's the whole ballgame is blockchains. And so building a new blockchain, it's like somebody who goes and tries to build a new Bitcoin. If anybody, like, it's kind of laughable today if somebody were to come to a VC and pitch, I'm going to build the next Bitcoin. You just can't be like, you're joking, right? Like, that's not a serious pitch.
I would actually love to hear a pitch like that.
Yeah.
In 2026.
Yeah. But like, people used to pitch that. Like, I remember getting pitches like that,
all
like
the time.
in 18, 17. Yeah.
Oh, how many better Bitcoins were there?
Totally, right? But like, today, it would be funny to get that pitch, right? It's like literally a joke. But making that pitch about Ethereum, about Solana, about whatever, it's threatening because one can imagine it could actually happen. It's hard. It's extremely hard. But I think like most of the really big outcomes in venture, they have that kind of reaction, right? They like it's so implausible that it makes you angry. You never get angry about something that's like just stupid. If somebody says like, "I want to build the next Bitcoin," nobody's going to get angry about that. Like Bitcoiners aren't going to start writing these long threads. And I can't believe this person would compare themselves to Bitcoin.
No, they wouldn't even notice it,
right?
Unless it got big, right? It would have to have this like survivor bias to even like enter people's radar.
Yeah,
it would be dismissed categorically,
right?
Like, and not worth conversation,
right? But I have to imagine for you guys, like, it must be demoralizing to some degree to go from being probably like the highest favorable ratings in crypto Twitter to now being like public enemy #1 in the span of like 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting texts from my mom. She's like, how upset are you? She's like, should I reply? I'm like, never tweet ever. Don't touch the title. Like,
so what are you telling your team? How are you telling your team to navigate this?
Yeah, I think one reframing that has been helpful is that like they're actually giving energy instead of like hate. And so maybe like part of my team, we view attention as a more kind of absolute value. So like if somebody hates you, it's not a negative, it's actually worth more than them not caring whatsoever. And so framing that like helps take the sting off a little bit. Like maybe it's
12
not
more
worth
minutes.
the same as a positive endorsement,
right?
But it does spark conversation. And so I think leaning into that has been helpful.
Spoken like a true shitposter.
Proof of living.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, like I think about, probably a lot of people who watch this show know like Choose Rich Nick, right? He's
love that.
Dude, he gets an insane amount of views. Most people who don't know what he's doing is hate, and then everyone who like kind of knows his bit is like, oh, this guy's actually great at what he's doing. But he's getting more engagement on crypto Twitter than like anyone else, essentially. And so that, even though these comments are very negative, he is creating a brand. I think he likened it in a recent podcast. I think Laura Shin's podcast actually to Barstool. He's like, Portnoy does the same thing. There's as many people that hate Dave Portnoy as love him. And that's like part of the entire amassing of energy. And so to me, the most important thing, like it is really hard to understand what Monet is on the tech side. Like it is a very technical project. So the best chance you have to get people to know that they should build on it is to just get generalized energy and attention. And then when it's centered around Mana, like hopefully they actually look into what it is. And I think that has actually worked quite well for a number of years. Like could do without like the personal insults and people saying like,
what's the worst personal insult you've seen that rubbed you the wrongest way?
There are like very long streams of DMs. I'm trying to think. Maybe how about this? I'll go with like the one thing that has made my day in the last few days. On Sunday, it was just like after Arthur Aza posted, and it was basically just like crypto Twitter erupted. It was like every single person had an opinion on Monad. And I put out a tweet like, it feels to me like everyone is just rooting or like hoping that Monad is a scam. They like want this to be a scam so bad. Like, why?
Yeah.
And it's like clearly, Keone and team have spent 4 years at this point. there's been an insane amount of effort. Like we've tried to Tom's point, we've tried
Wow.
literally everything
I'm
to try to be.
impressed. See that? It's a blinking red, and then just like stop for a while. I think it's observe there's nobody on the intersection, and then stop again, move on again. Well done, Tesla. Well done for that.
Squeaky clean and like do the public sale, do the airdrop, like make sure
See that?
that those boxes are checked.
There was a
like,
slight bump. This is the thing about like very specific to Indiana maybe or on the Midwest. There's many like kind of like the road is not as smooth as in California, so there's a lot of bump. I don't know if the camera can see it or not, or can see it, just ignore it, or it's just not being trained well. But I think it could see, it should be able to see it, right? So I feel like, and I've thought about it. It's like a few hours, like an hour ago, that I think if FSD ever works in Indiana, specifically Midwest, or maybe especially Indiana, because Indiana is like, I felt like it's an outlier of the terrain and the street. There's many like potholes, you know. It's not as perfect as in like in San Diego or LA or in California and other maybe state. I think there's maybe a worse state than that, but Indiana maybe could be one of at least halfway there, one of the worst, or halfway like that one. There's a pothole, right? And there's a mud water mud that should be able to kind of slow down a little bit, and if that works, I feel like the FSD is gonna work kind of mostly in everywhere in the US, you know. So Indiana is like one of kind of like, maybe it's like the hardest like state to be trained on, right? But if it works, I think it's gonna be awesome. But maybe there's a worse state than Indiana, I think, in terms of like the messiness, the so many variables, right? So which is good for the FSD to be trained on.
It didn't actually end up changing the result much, which is funny. Like at the time when we were doing this, we thought it might, but yeah, I don't know. Sorry. Back to
What made your day?
what made my day. Donald, I was like, why does it feel like everyone wants Monet to be a scam so bad? And Donald replied with a couple actual like good answers, and then he's like, listen, crypto Twitter is so mad at everything right now that Satoshi could launch Bitcoin and everyone would hate it. It was like genuinely like you could launch the best thing in the world, but people are just angry, and I think it's part of the way that the cycle has gone. Like altcoins have generally gotten crushed relative to Bitcoin, and like even Ethereum has been kind of crushed for a lot of the cycle. People have been trading meme coins and just be like losing money. Like the little guys who spent time to try to learn what to do in crypto besides just buy Bitcoin have generally done very poorly, and they're just angry. And so it's much easier to just not care and just say, I hate this thing.
Yeah.
And then like when you see other people doing it too, there's also torque to it, right? You just buy into the mob mentality.
Totally. Cool to hate Monet right now.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I should hate on Monet. I feel like
You should be buying into the Mon mentality.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of different explanations. It's like, why do we need another L1? There's like an emotional answer to that. For that, like the reason that they're asking might be emotional. There's an actual answer to it. It's pretty complex, but at least it's happening around Monad and not around some other project.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, like the week one of a launch of any chain is almost always a nothing burger. That was true for Ethereum. It was true for Solana. It was true for the Move chains. It's, you know, for Base. Like Base, the only thing that happened in the first week was there was a bald token, and besides that, like there was nothing going on. Like, what are you going to get done in 1 week? The answer is very little. It takes time for an ecosystem to develop and actually be able to prove itself. So
that was really good also. It just it wanted to go forward, and then it see the car on the left move forward, so it stops, and then after it passes by, it move forward without waiting on the car on the right side, because I think the car on the right side arrived later than this car. Okay, let's see how it handled this complicated, like messed up I think, school, because there's a school and there's a blinking red light and there's so many things going on. Let's see how it handles this, because this is quite complicated. It's not unusual. Okay, it stops. So stupid. Yep, it's complicated, that one. And there's to make it even more complicated, there's a guy there. It seems to be confused. So I wouldn't blame. It's even for me. It's confusing. So I'm not really blaming Tesla for that. Even for me, I'm confusing. Should I stop? Should I not? Because he's also like confused. Anyway. All right. So 4 more minutes.
The question of, is Monad bullshit? Is Monad going to succeed? Is it going to do well? Does not get answered in the first week. There's so little data. And like, yeah, people are going to come around. They're going to play around the chain. They're going to use a couple of the apps. They're going to buy a couple meme coins. But the ability for you to retain founders, teams, TVL, activity, all that stuff is yet to be proven. So the question of, should you be bearish on Monad? You don't know enough to know yet. Give it time. Let the data come out. And let the team do what teams do.
Yeah, you know this. Everyone already knows this. But the echo chamber loses its focus and finds a new shiny object to hate or to discuss or to love very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think for better or for worse, the energy around Monad is actually going to dissipate as people get enraged by the next thing.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so Eigenlayer, they recently put out this postmortem talking about why restaking underperformed as a narrative, let's say. Like, obviously there were extremely high expectations, and they were like, look, why do we feel like we under-delivered on this story? Why have there been so few AVSs? Why have there been so few success stories about the core narrative that we were telling? And I think, if I think of Monad, Eigenlayer is probably the closest example I can think of this kind of rise and fall of narrative momentum. And the reality is that I cannot think of a single project that had that degree of hype that successfully delivered on that degree of hype, right? Almost always when you have that amount of hype pre-launch, you are not going to be able to live up to it, because Twitter can just imagine arbitrary amounts of goodness and airdrops and money making, and the token just going up and to the right infinitely, and that kind of irrational exuberance almost always is a setup for a disappointment, because nobody can deliver on that in 1 week. How on earth could you? How could you tell, like, oh, Monad finally launched, and guess what? Everyone was right. It's worth 20 billion. It's worth 50 billion. We figured it all out.
TVL went vertical.
Yeah, TVL went to 5 billion. What would people do with 5 billion on Monad on day one? Obviously nothing. It takes...
Very smart. Very smart. I like that. I like that interaction. It's kind of like inching forward a little bit as it knows, like, the traffic from the front is like getting less and less, and then just getting ready to turn left. That's really human-like. Really good. Kudos. Well done for that intersection, kind of turning left. Yeah. Okay, we're almost there. So far, I think I'm pretty happy. Pretty happy, not heavy. What am I saying? Because it's done pretty well, I think. Only occasionally it doesn't know, like the pothole. That one is a minor thing. That one, the misjudging of the stopping when there's somebody who's also feeling confused about making a stop or not. The guy, I'm also confused, but that's even me got confused. Yeah, and the other one is like maybe the most for me it's the ability to change lane very early, not to wait until the last minute. That I think can be improved by just training more, and then just identifying the potholes and the muds, because I hate to just ram through the pothole or even the hum or even the water. Just slow down a little bit. If you can identify that, that will be amazing. We're almost here. Just make one left turn and we are here at our bakery shop over here. That's it. Let's see how it stops. So, oh, it parks. Oh wow. Okay, that's pretty cool. Just park. Wow, I'm impressed. Although the way it parked is kind of too much to the left, it's supposed to be going that way, going that way, going more to the right, because there's more space. See the space? See? And then this is like in front of the like somebody's like door, so it should be like moving maybe 2 feet, 3 feet to the right, and it'll be all good. Peace out.